Good evening and welcome to New Directors, New Films. My name's Gavin Smith. I'm one of the members of the programming committee for the festival this year, and it's great to see so many of you here for a rare glimpse of Bulgarian cinema. I actually saw my first Bulgarian film. I've seen 3 Bulgarian films in my life, and the first one I saw about 4 or 5 years ago was a film called Zift, and it was kind of unforgettable, very strange, and it comes as no surprise to me to discover that the film you're about to see tonight, The Color of the Chameleon, was actually written by the author of Zift. And the cameraman on Zift is the director of this film. Sadly, the director of the film isn't here, but we do have 2 special guests who will come up in a minute and say something, and we'll be here afterwards to take the many questions that you all have. I guarantee. This is a very strange, very cryptic film. It's a lot of fun. And it definitely introduces a new talent that I'm pretty sure we'll be hearing from. We'll be hearing plenty more from. This could be the tipping point for Bulgarian cinema. That's what I'm hoping for. Anyway, don't laugh. Why are you laughing? I mean, Bulgaria. Why not? Okay, so please welcome the producer and the author of the novel on which this film is based, Vladislav Todorov. And also joining him on stage will be the star of the film, Ruscen Vidinliev.
Good evening. My name is Vladislav Todorov, and I'm writer-producer of this movie. And it's a great honor for us to be included in this very prestigious selection. I hope you'll enjoy the movie, and we'll be here for Q&A after the movie ends. So I'll say no more, just I hope you'll enjoy it. Thank you.
You wrote the original novel on which this film was based when? In the 90s?
No. It was published in Bulgaria in 2010.
Oh, 2010, okay. Sorry, we'll be louder. Is your mic working? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
And the novel was called Zincograph, which is both the novel that is the subversive novel that is investigated in the film, and then becomes the name of the third name of your protagonist. He keeps assuming new identities. It seems to me that since the fall of communism, the subject of informers and the relationship between informers and the secret police has become a real kind of a touchstone subject in the East. It's a subject that films keep coming back to, and presumably literature, and it's a subject that still hasn't been exhausted 20 years later. So I wondered if you could talk about why it still continues to exert such a kind of an amazing kind of power over people, this kind of historical burden that doesn't seem to ever go away. And also, as someone who was presumably living in Bulgaria before the fall of communism, if there's a kind of there are personal experiences that inform, no pun intended, your treatment of this material.
No, I don't believe there are any personal experiences here. It's just the issue is so important in order to understand the process, the transition process from communism to democracy. People should know about secret police, because simply the volume of informants is staggering. When they open the files, we're talking about millions of people. We're talking about every family basically housing 1 or 2 informants. So it's really something that behind the scenes, in certain way, functions, maybe psychologically, maybe also socially, because such people, they collaborate. Many of the new businesses that were created were practically initiated and run by secret police, former secret police officers and informants. They keep announcing these people in Bulgaria. The law is so that they incrementally announce them. So even today, you could see portions being announced of people who collaborated. And among intelligentsia and today's intellectual elite, there are many, many of them already announced. It's really something that is overwhelming. And in this respect, it's a factor in the society that dominates and, in a sense, kind of orchestrates what's going on and what's happening. There was a German movie, if you remember, also treating the subject, the lives of others, that received an Oscar. We perceived of our movie as being the opposite of the lives of others, because there you have a certain element of romanticization of the intelligentsia being the only sort of like exclusive victim of the system. Actors, directors, writers, they were the target, which is not true. Basically, the target was the entire mass of the population, and the banality of evil, as Hannah Arendt called it, shows here. And this movie, the German one, also romanticizes the spy, the evil genius there, who experienced a moral transformation because he listens to Bach and to people loving each other, and all of a sudden becomes a completely new man. Morality restores.
He's redeemed.
Yeah, he's redeemed, yeah. We don't believe that, completely not. Intelligentsia is not the exclusive victim, and spies, they do not experience such transformations. Only on screen, I guess. So we decided to be sort of more, well, shall I put it, more cynical in this respect, not to believe that these things get easily redeemed, or they're even, we think they're not redeemable at all. We're talking about generations upon generations of people. They have to go into history completely for this thing to, so the society, in a sense, not to redeem, but to purge itself from this.
You choose to treat this subject, though, also in a very different way from the lives of others, in that it's a truly bizarre, truly absurd depiction of this. You effectively, the character of Batko parodies the structures and the tactics of the secret police. And I'm curious as to how if the novel is equally, satirical, I'm curious as to how it was received in Bulgaria, and beyond that, are you able to kind of, is it readily accepted that this subject can actually be treated as a ridiculous kind of masquerade in the end?
Yeah, the style of the novel, I would say, would be similar to that, very ironic. I don't think that intellectuals like this because they're portrayed in a way that it's not likable. That's obvious. Many people could find themselves on the screen, kind of recognize themselves probably, and the other myth that this type of university circles that nurtured new thought at some point. And after the fall of communism, these people sort of like created a promise for the society and for the culture and for the spirit. This turned out to be completely false. Democracy in Bulgaria is a failed democracy. It's a failed system, and it's been 20 plus years now and it's been proven. Practically the whole promise that that was coming at a time from the alternative circles, from university, and that's a historical, probably the only historical truth here in the movie is that these people came out of the sort of underground circles and immediately enter the power structure. And this happened everywhere, by the way, in Czechoslovakia, and in Germany, in Bulgaria, in other countries. These groups that maintained the claim that they will create a new promise for their countries turn out to be, in a sense, imposters.
At the center of the film is a character who assumes a series of identities, and yet I think throughout the film he remains a kind of a cipher. He doesn't seem to really have a completely, at least recognizable inner self. He's very much an enigma. So what I want to ask you, Rushev, is as someone who I guess was probably maybe not even born at the time that the communism fell.
That's very kind.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe you were very, very young and you didn't really know what was going on. But can you talk about how you set about playing this character who doesn't seem to have very many it doesn't seem to have an inner life?
Yeah, just before I answer the question, just want to say hello because I didn't earlier, and just to say how happy I am to be here because there's a line in the film that says, "Whatever happens in Bulgaria stays in Bulgaria." It's not true, obviously. I recently went to a safari in Africa. It's quite far-fetched maybe, but I'll try to get to the point. And amongst all the lions and the hyenas and elephants, we came across a chameleon. And it was taking a super long time to cross the road. The color had blended in with the road, and it was just taking really precautious steps. And we were watching it, and we were like, who are you fooling, man? I mean, come on, you know? And I think there was something naive and sort of charming to that, because all he was trying to do is survive, and I think that's sort of how I approached the character.
But during the course of the film, he seems to shift from simply trying to survive and simply trying to kind of deal with what he's faced with, to actually orchestrating an elaborate scheme. I guess it begins when he begins to initiate his own kind of fake secret police department, and at that moment, I began to when I saw the film the first time, I began to feel like, well, maybe this guy is just simply insane. But in fact, he's playing an extremely long game, and there's something that seems to happen in the film, that it seems to shift into a different kind of film around the time of the fall of communism. Maybe the style of the film changes a little bit, and it becomes maybe even more of a kind of a Western kind of genre film, a kind of a caper film, something like Ocean's 11. I wonder if that was a conscious thing. Is that? I presume that isn't the same case in the novel, but was that a conscious decision to try to kind of shift gears about the midpoint in the film?
Yes, because we're talking about two periods. We wanted to, in a sense, visually and also in terms of action and drama, to distinguish them. The underground period under communism, and then after the fall of communism, the new period. The other thing would be that when reality changes, of course, all conditions change, and they demand a different type of action. The other thing would be that the main character creates his own reality, in a sense. There are many, many details that are building up until this moment when the action starts. And the action is there not only to provide entertainment, but also to wrap them up. So all these little details that are there, they come into action, in a sense. They start functioning. And it should sort of like resemble sort of a machine that is set in motion. It's put together initially, this machine of all these details and and things, and when the system collapses, this machine kicks into action. So that's how I would explain it.
Role and work with the director.
Well, it was awful working with the director. He's really untalented, and it was great working with him. I think he had a very clear vision on how he wanted this film to turn out, and because he comes from because he's a director of photography and he comes from that background, he kept saying to me, "I don't care what you're gonna go through emotionally. I just care about what it looks like on the screen." So so I wasn't gonna get any therapy from him, you know. But as soon as we started shooting, obviously I knew what he was saying is basically that we have a story to tell. And preparing, well, we had quite a lot of rehearsals, and we also had the two casting directors working with the actors on set. So it was just a constant talking about each situation and each scene, and finding out what the best way to sort of put across the sense of humor without winking too much, you know.
Well, yeah, there. As you can see, most of the locations would be interiors. We chose this because we needed to create this idea of conspiracies that the main character from the underground sort of like manipulates the entire world. There are some exteriors, of course, but we try to hide, in a sense, the real Bulgaria. We decided sort of like to mask, and people who know the city wouldn't be able to that easily recognize where this is taking place. We basically rented the former party house, and the movie theater that you see here would be the former party movie theater.
Do you mean the Communist Party?
The Communist Party
we were
movie
thinking
theater.
it was like some fun place where people had parties.
The roof would be the roof of the communist headquarters. So since we rented it and we try to utilize it as much as we could, so many things are located there. The other curious thing for us was the set of the ship that we had to build. The ship in the ending, the black and white, it's a set, and the sea is painted. And we try to not completely show that that's set, but to get a hint, in a sense. If you look closely, you would be able to recognize that the sea is painted, and it practically the ending, the main character dies in a set, not in reality. And the ship is not moving at all. It's a set. And that's why it's black and white, basically. to distinguish it from the rest of the movie. But it's not a high-budget film, so we didn't have that much resources to create a great variety of locations. So that's why mainly interiors.
Yes.
How was the film received in Bulgaria? Hasn't been received at all because it'll premiere in 2 weeks. And we'll see. We're about to find out. Well, the thing here is, well, it can be interpreted various ways, but for me personally, there needs to be, well, justice needs to take place in some way. And since justice never comes through a social, well, how to put it, like through society, it comes by chance. And that's why we have the heroine here, the girl. She has no name, basically, and she's limping. And the idea was that this girl plays the main character's limping fate. And she's clumsy, and she pushes people. She causes people to die or to get injured. That was the story about her former husband. This was the case with Etcher. Because of clumsiness and because she's limping. And the idea, the ending was that we didn't want to try, to have it too explicit that she sort of pushes him. Trying to save him, she kind of pushes him so he loses his balance. It's still, I get maybe subtle to be able to kind of put it on screen, but that was the idea. So justice through her, through the limping fate.
I'm not sure I can repeat the whole thing, but this viewer has spent a great deal of time in Bulgaria since the late 90s and is very familiar with what life has become in post-communist Bulgaria. That in fact, if life was unbearable during the communist era, it's become even more unbearable, even more impossible in the years since, and the various governments that have come and gone in Bulgaria over these years after communism have all been just as corrupt as the system seemed to be before the fall of communism, and each of these governments has basically blamed communism and the legacy of the the communist era for everything that's wrong with the country, and yet each subsequent government has failed to address the problems. Is that true?
Yeah, that's right. I mean, the so-called human torches now, people torch themselves. It's becoming sort of a, I don't know, it's like a symbolic thing that, it's terrible, obviously. But ultimately, it's sort of a bad news because you have one absurdity replaced by another. You substitute one. I mean, I think that, as a short review in New York Times pointed out, that's true. It's a vicious sort of like a cycle of one absurdity being substituted for another. Well, it's always difficult from one medium like fiction, literary vehicle, to translate it into a visual one. But I had experience with my first novel that was turned into a movie, Zift, where we had to do the same thing. It's not an easy thing to do. You basically have to slaughter the novel. If you're not ready to do that, you're going to do a bad job. So an author of a novel who wants to translate it into a film needs really to be very sadistic and ruthless, yeah.
Was there anything in the novel that you drew upon that was particularly helpful?
First of all, the script was much longer than a lot of scenes were cut out for the final film. So if there was anything, it was there. I don't think the script got butchered. So I disagree with you. It was all there, and it was all something we could play with. And then obviously, you know, the final cut is something completely different.
Okay, well, Ruscen, Vladislav, thanks very much for coming.
Thank you.